The evening sky blazed in shades of orange and pink as Emily and I pulled into the driveway of our new house. Our newborn son, Noah, was asleep in his carrier, his tiny fists curled tightly, his chest rising and falling with fragile breaths. Emily stroked his cheek, her tired eyes glowing with the soft pride of a mother who had just endured the hardest week of her life. After 12 years serving as a Navy SEAL, I thought I'd seen everything. The worst of humanity, the fiercest storms, and the thin line between survival and death. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for the sight of my son taking his first breath. That single moment had washed away all the blood, all the sand, all the steel from my past. My mission was no longer overseas. It was here, protecting them. We had chosen this neighborhood because it looked perfect. Trimmed lawns, pastel houses, children riding bikes along the cul-de-sac. Peaceful. Safe. At least, that's what we thought. I had just unloaded the last hospital bag when the first knock came. It wasn't polite. It was sharp, insistent, like someone demanding entry into a fortress. I opened the door to find a woman standing there, late 50s, her gray hair cut short in a style that screamed control. She wore a stiff blazer though the evening was warm, and her lips were pressed into a thin, judgmental line. In her hands was a clipboard, and her eyes glinted with the authority of someone who believed the world bent to her rules. "I'm Karen," she said before I could speak, "president of the Homeowners Association. You're new here, so I'll make this clear from the start. Everything in this neighborhood runs by the book. My book." Emily shifted behind me, holding Noah closer. I forced a polite nod. "Good evening. We just brought our baby home from the hospital. Maybe we can talk tomorrow." Karen's gaze shot to my truck parked in the driveway. "That vehicle is a violation. Oversized trucks are prohibited in driveways under Rule 14C. I clenched my jaw, but kept my voice calm. "It's been a long day. I'll move it tomorrow." Her eyes flicked to Noah. For a moment, her mouth twisted as though she'd tasted something sour. "And the baby," she added coolly. "Noise regulations are strict here. Crying at night is considered a disturbance. If he becomes a problem, we'll have to step in." Emily gasped softly. My blood ran cold. Step in? Over our child? But before I could speak, Karen turned on her heel and marched away, her heels striking the pavement like the click of a rifle's bolt. I closed the door slowly, forcing my pulse to calm. Emily whispered, "Jake, what did she mean by that?" I pulled her close, pressing my lips to her forehead. "It's just a woman drunk on power. She can't touch us." But in the back of my mind, alarms were ringing. I'd learned long ago that small threats ignored grow into wars. The following week, the harassment began. At first it was letters, slipped under our door, taped to the mailbox, tucked beneath the windshield wiper of my truck. Lists of violations. Lawn too long, stroller left outside, trash bins not pulled in fast enough. Then came the photographs. I spotted her crouched behind her hedge one evening, snapping pictures of Emily as she rocked Noah near the window. When I stepped outside, she vanished like a shadow, leaving only the faint click of her camera echoing in my ears. Emily grew restless, always glancing over her shoulder. "Jake," she whispered one night, "she's watching us. Every move we make. I feel like we're in a cage." I held her tight, promising protection, but deep down I knew this wasn't going away. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was a crisp morning. Emily bundled Noah into the stroller for a short walk while I unpacked boxes inside. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and damp earth. Birds chirped. It should have been peaceful. Then I heard the raised voices. By the time I reached the door, Karen was standing in front of Emily, blocking her path like a sentinel. Her clipboard was gone. Instead, her hands were clenched into fists. "You don't deserve that child," Karen hissed. "HOA has standards. A crying infant disrupts harmony. Hand him to me. I'll see that he's placed where he belongs." Emily froze, clutching the stroller handles so tightly her knuckles turned white. "You're insane," she cried. "Stay away from us." That was when I stepped outside. Years of training slid back into place like a sheath snapping over a blade. My posture straightened, my breathing slowed, and my voice came out calm. Too calm. "Karen," I said evenly, You're crossing a line. She turned, eyes narrowing, her lips curling into a smirk. And who's going to stop me? You? You're just another homeowner. You follow my rules. I took one slow step closer. My shadow fell over her. When I spoke, my voice dropped into a tone I'd once used in deserts, jungles, and war zones, a tone that froze grown men in their tracks. I was trained to stop people far worse than you. Overseas, they call me a Navy SEAL. Here, I'm just a husband and a father. But if you ever threaten my family again, you'll learn those skills haven't disappeared. For the first time, Karen faltered. Her smirk twitched. But arrogance is stubborn, and she quickly masked it with a scoff. We'll see about that. She stormed away, but her words lingered like smoke after an explosion. Emily's hands were trembling as she held Noah. Tears welled in her eyes. Jake, she was going to take him. I pulled them both close, pressing my chin against Emily's hair. Not while I'm breathing, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the kind to retreat. She was the kind to escalate. And escalation meant war. Karen's retreat that morning was not a surrender. It was a recalibration. Like an enemy commander testing the perimeter, she had pulled back only to plan her next assault. The following days confirmed it. It began with the letters. Longer, harsher, no longer about grass or trash cans. They spoke of community well-being, parental competence, and the responsibility of the HOA to intervene where necessary. The words were laced with menace, as if she were building a legal case to strip Noah from us. Emily's anxiety grew. She refused to step outside alone. Whenever the doorbell rang, she jumped as though expecting Karen to burst through with chains. One evening, as I tucked Noah into his crib, Emily whispered, "What if she find a way? What if she calls Child Protective Services? What if they believe her lies?" I looked at my son, his tiny chest rising and falling, his whole life a fragile ember in this world. My jaw tightened. Then she's not ready for the war she started. The harassment escalated. Late at night, we heard footsteps outside. Once I found our mailbox pried open, its hinges bent. Another time, Emily screamed when she saw a figure at Noah's window. By the time I ran outside, the street was empty, but a camera lens glinted in the grass. Karen wasn't working alone anymore. She had recruited others, board members, neighbors who bowed to her iron grip, people who either feared her or enjoyed her brand of tyranny. I recognized the tactic: isolate the target, surround them, break them down. I had seen warlords use it in villages overseas. And now, my family was the village. But I wasn't some unarmed villager. That night, after Emily fell into a restless sleep, I opened the box I hadn't touched in years. Inside lay reminders of the life I thought I'd left behind: discipline, precision, preparedness. My SEAL gear was gone, returned to the Navy, but the mindset? That never left. I began reinforcing doors, checking locks, memorizing the HOA's bylaws. Information was ammunition, and I prepared, not just for defense, but for confrontation. It came sooner than expected. 3 days later, Karen arrived with reinforcements. 2 HOA board members, men in suits with clipboards, smugness radiating from every pore. They stood in our driveway like judges before a trial. Emily held Noah close inside the house as I stepped out. Karen's voice was sharp, commanding. We've documented multiple violations: noise disturbances, unkempt property, community disruption, and most seriously, concerns about the welfare of your infant. The HOA has authority to intervene. One of the men nodded. We recommend temporary guardianship until an investigation can be conducted. Emily gasped behind me, her voice breaking. You can't take him. I raised a hand, steadying her. My eyes locked on Karen. Authority? I said quietly. You think a neighborhood association outranks the law? Outranks a father? Karen smirked. This community is built on rules. Without order, there is chaos. And chaos is dangerous for children. Hand him over now, before this gets worse. My pulse slowed, my senses sharpening the way they used to before a mission. I took one step forward, my boots crunching on gravel. The men shifted uncomfortably, though Karen's grin widened. You have no idea who you're threatening, I said. That night, I noticed headlights idling at the end of the street. Watching, I noticed neighbors who once waved, now turning away. Shutters closing as Karen whispered poison into their ears. She was turning the whole neighborhood against us. Emily clung to me. Jake, she won't stop. She won't stop until she has him. I held her, every muscle taut with resolve. Then I won't stop until she learns what happens when you come for a SEAL's family. The following morning, I made my move. I attended the HOA meeting. The room was filled with residents, most of them seated quietly, afraid to challenge Karen. She stood at the front like a dictator, rattling off violations with glee. When she reached our name, I stood. Her smile spread. Ah, yes, the newest residents. The ones endangering our harmony with an unruly infant. The board will now decide appropriate measures. I walked to the center, my voice steady, loud enough to carry. Before you decide anything, you should know who I am. My name is Jake Reynolds. I served 12 years as a Navy SEAL. I have stared down warlords, terrorists, and pirates. Do you really think a woman with a clipboard frightens me? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's smile faltered, but I pressed on. You want to talk about rules? I know about rules. I spent years defending a constitution that guarantees my family's freedom. You want to talk about noise? My son's cry is the sound of life, of survival, of a future. And you want to talk about order? Order isn't control. Order is protecting the innocent from the bullies who prey on them. The room buzzed. Neighbors whispered. Some nodded. Karen's face reddened, her composure cracking. This is irrelevant, she snapped. Your past doesn't matter here. Rules are rules. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a tone only she could hear. Then hear my rule. If you or anyone else comes near my wife or my son again, you'll regret it. I don't need weapons to end this war. I just need resolve. Karen tried to laugh it off, but the seed of doubt had been planted in the residents' minds. For the first time, her grip on them wavered. But I knew Karen. She wouldn't back down. She doubled down. That night, as Emily rocked Noah to sleep, I watched from the window. The street was quiet, but in the silence, I felt the tension coiled like a spring. The real battle hadn't even begun. The neighborhood no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like occupied territory. Every mailbox, every window, every neighbor's stare carried suspicion. Karen had spun her web well, whispering lies until fear replaced reason. But fear doesn't last long when truth arrives. I knew Karen's last move was coming. Bullies always escalate when they lose control. And like any mission, preparation meant survival. So I waited. The attack came on a Saturday morning. Emily was in the kitchen, humming softly as she fed Noah. Sunlight streamed through the window, a brief illusion of peace. Then the knock came, heavy, unrelenting, like a battering ram demanding surrender. When I opened the door, Karen stood there, flanked by 2 police officers and a man in a suit who introduced himself as a child welfare representative. Karen's face gleamed with triumph, as if she'd finally won. This is it, she declared. We filed formal complaints. Unsafe environment. Disturbance. Incompetence. The HOA has the right to protect this community. And that means taking custody of the infant until further notice. Emily's cry pierced the air. No, you can't. She clutched Noah tighter, tears streaking down her cheeks. The officers shifted uncomfortably. One of them glanced at me, uncertainty in his eyes. They weren't sure. They didn't believe her entirely. But Karen was loud, confident, the kind of person who filled silence with intimidation. I stepped forward slowly, my hands open calm. Officers, you don't know me, but I know exactly what this is. This woman is abusing her position, fabricating violations, twisting rules to feed her obsession with control. She's not protecting this community. She's terrorizing it. Karen scoffed. Oh, please. He's just paranoid. Look at him, military aggressive. This is why children need to be kept safe from people like him. I locked eyes with the officers. My voice dropped, firm and steady. My name is Jake Reynolds. I served 12 years as a Navy SEAL. I've been trained to protect life, to defend the innocent, to face down threats most people can't imagine. And I'll tell you this, If you let her cross this line, if you let her steal a child from his mother's arms without cause, then you're not protecting the community. You're helping destroy it. The younger officer's jaw tightened. He turned to the child welfare rep. Do you have proof? Actual evidence. The man hesitated, shuffling his papers. Only reports from the HOA president. That was my opening. Reports, I said, built on lies. Ask around. Ask the neighbors who've been harassed, fined, and threatened. Ask the families who've hidden in their own homes because of her tyranny. This isn't about a baby. This is about power. And if you let her get away with it, she'll move on to the next victim. Karen's face flushed crimson. Lies. All lies. I've done nothing but enforce the rules. That was when voices rose from the street. One by one, neighbors emerged from their houses, faces pale, eyes uncertain, but voices gathering strength. A woman spoke first. She fined me $200 because my flowers were the wrong color. Another man stepped forward. She tried to have my dog removed for barking once. A teenager shouted. She told me I couldn't ride my bike on the sidewalk. The crowd grew, their courage swelling as they saw they weren't alone. Karen spun, her eyes wild, her grip on control slipping. This is insubordination, she shrieked. You're all ungrateful. I kept this community perfect, and this is how you repay me. The officers exchanged looks. The older one stepped forward. Ma'am, that's enough. We're going to need you to come with us for questioning. Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing. Disbelief etched across her face. You can't do this. I'm the president. I make the rules. No, I said softly, stepping closer, my arm around Emily's trembling shoulders. You don't make the rules. Not here. Not anymore. The officers escorted her away, her shrieks echoing down the street. The neighborhood watched in silence. A collective breath they'd been holding finally released. Emily clutched Noah tightly, sobbing into my chest. Relief poured through me like water over fire. For the first time since we'd moved in, I felt the storm breaking. Neighbors approached, some apologetic, some grateful. An older man placed a hand on my shoulder. We should have spoken up sooner. Thank you for standing up when we couldn't. I nodded, my gaze sweeping the crowd. Evil thrives when good people stay silent. Don't let it happen again. That night, when the house was quiet and Noah slept peacefully in his crib, Emily curled against me on the couch. Her voice was soft, trembling but steady. You saved us, Jake. Not just me and Noah. All of them. The whole neighborhood. I kissed her hair, pulling her closer. I didn't save anyone. I just did what I've always done. Protect the people who matter. And you, Emily, Noah, you matter more than anything. She looked up at me, tears glistening in her eyes. Do you think it's over? I thought about Karen, about the way power twists people, about how control becomes an addiction. Maybe she'd be back. Maybe she'd find another way. But I wasn't afraid. I smiled faintly. If it isn't, then she picked the wrong family. Because I'm not just a neighbor. I'm a SEAL, and I don't lose. Weeks passed. The neighborhood slowly healed. Laughter returned to the streets. Children played again, and the shadow Karen cast began to fade. The HOA was restructured, fair and balanced. The community finally free from her grip. Life wasn't perfect. No life ever is, but it was ours. Emily's smile grew stronger. Noah's laugh brighter. And every evening when I stood on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. And I swore to myself, as long as I drew breath, no one, not Karen, not anyone, would ever steal that peace from us again.